Imagine this. Someone talks down to you, laughs at you in front of others, dismisses your feelings, or crosses a line you never thought they would. In that moment, every cell in your body wants to defend itself. You want to explain, argue, shout, prove that they are wrong about you. That impulse is human. But what if the most powerful response is not a reaction at all, but a decision, a quiet, intentional withdrawal that completely changes the psychological game? Carl Jung once said that the things that irritate us in others are often keys to understanding ourselves. Most people stop at that line. They think it's only about self-reflection. What does this trigger say about me? But the truth goes deeper. The real transformation begins when you ask, what am I going to do with this awareness? Am I going to stay in this dynamic and keep explaining myself? Or am I going to step back, reclaim my energy, and let my silence do the work? When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is usually confrontation. You want them to understand how much they hurt you. You want them to see your side. You want closure. Jung, however, would invite you to look at power differently. Real power is rarely loud. Real power is choosing what and who you allow into your psychological space. It's not about the speech you give them. It's about the access you stop giving them. People who disrespect you often move from a false sense of security. They assume your kindness is weakness. They believe that because you're patient, empathetic, or polite, you will always be available. Psychologically, they stand in what they think is a safe zone. I can push, they will stay. Jung would call this projection. They project their own insecurity, fear, and inadequacy onto you. They belittle you, so they don't have to feel small inside themselves. But everything changes the moment you stop engaging. You stop answering their messages. You no longer rush to clarify what you meant. You don't chase them with explanations. You become quiet, not as a punishment, but as a boundary. And now something very interesting happens, not in you, but in them. When you fall silent, their mind becomes the noisiest place in the room. They enter a kind of active imagination, a mental loop where they replay conversations, rewind moments, try to decode your absence. What happened? Why did they stop talking to me? Did I go too far? Did I lose them? In Jungian terms, they start encountering their own shadow. Without your words to distract them, they're left alone with their behavior. Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But here's the twist. When you suddenly cut the bond, you interrupt the old pattern. The other person experiences a kind of psychological shock. There used to be a familiar dance. They push, you justify. They wound, you explain. They disappear, you wait. Now that dance stops. There is no reaction, no explanation, no argument, only silence. And in that silence, they no longer see you. They see themselves. This is often more powerful than any confrontation. In a fight, they can blame your tone, your words, your emotions. They can say, you're overreacting or you're too sensitive. But when you are silent, there is nothing to attack. Your absence becomes a mirror. They're forced to sit with the echo of their own actions. As your silence continues, something deeper begins. Jung described individuation as the process where a person confronts their inner world without hiding behind others, roles, or distractions. When you step out of the dynamic, you remove yourself as their emotional shield. Suddenly, their behavior has consequences. There is no soft landing, no guaranteed forgiveness, no easy access. The psychological distance you create pushes them into an uncomfortable but necessary space. They must reckon with who they are when you're no longer there to absorb their disrespect. This is where Jung's idea of the transcendent function comes in. When a person is stuck between their conscious self-image, I'm a good person, and their unconscious behavior, I hurt someone who cared about me, a tension is created. Over time, this tension can give birth to insight. Maybe I'm not as kind as I tell myself. Maybe I'm the problem in this story. Your silence is not just the absence of sound. It becomes the catalyst for that internal confrontation. While all of this is happening in them, something equally important is happening in you. By refusing to engage in endless arguments, by not sending long paragraphs explaining your worth, by choosing not to fix their perception of you, you reclaim your psychological advantage. Jung would say you withdraw your projections and your energy, and you bring them back home, to yourself. You stop needing their approval to validate your reality. You stop waiting for an apology to begin healing. You understand that your value does not rise or fall based on how someone else treats you. And as you quietly focus on your own development, something shifts in the power dynamic. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer emotionally available on demand. They don't know what you think, where you stand, or what you feel. That uncertainty creates a psychological imbalance inside them, not you. Picture this in a simple scenario. A friend repeatedly jokes at your expense in front of others. You laughed it off the first time. You try to have an honest conversation the second time. They dismissed you. Relax, it's just a joke. The third time, you feel the familiar sting, but something is different. You don't argue. You don't explain again. You don't send a long text that starts with, "I just want you to understand." You simply step back. You stop calling. You stop responding with the same warmth. You are polite but distant. You have made a decision. I will not fight for a place where I am not respected. At first, they may not notice. Then one day they do. "Hey, what's wrong? You've changed." But you're not interested in a drama-fueled conversation. You don't perform your pain for them anymore. And whether you choose to explain a little or not at all, the real message is clear. Access to you is no longer automatic. This is not about coldness. It's about self-respect. It's not about emotional punishment. It's about emotional protection. You are not playing games. You are enforcing reality. If you cannot handle me with respect, you do not get to have me at all. As you walk this path, you begin to embody a different kind of strength. You advance without announcing it. You grow without broadcasting every step on social media or to mutual friends. You refuse to enter conversations where the goal is to twist your words, minimize your feelings, or drag you back into old patterns. You no longer feel obligated to explain why you're walking away. Your time, your energy, your peace, these become sacred. Instead of debating your worth, you invest that energy in becoming the person you know you are capable of being. You study, you create, you heal, you surround yourself with people who actually see you. You stop living as a reaction to others and start living as an expression of your inner self. That is psychological sovereignty. From the outside, your silence might look like nothing. No dramatic posts, no revenge moves, no public scenes. But internally, it is a revolution. And from their perspective, your silence is anything but empty. It is full of questions they cannot answer. It triggers animus projections, as Jung would say. Suddenly, they start seeing in you qualities they never wanted to acknowledge. Your strength, your dignity, your independence. Where they once saw someone easy to handle, they now see someone they cannot control. You don't need to send them a final monologue that ends with "you'll regret this." Your life becomes the message. Your growth becomes the response. Without any act of revenge, without raising your voice, you radiate a simple, powerful statement. You didn't break me. You reminded me who I am. Jung often spoke of the hero's journey within the psyche, the path where you descend into pain, confusion, and conflict, and then rise with a clearer sense of self. When someone disrespects you deeply, that moment can become the threshold of your own hero's journey. You have a choice: stay and fight for crumbs of respect, or walk away and rebuild your world from the inside out. When you choose the second option, your silence is not emptiness, it is elevation. You quietly raise your level. You align more and more with your own values. You learn to enjoy your own company. You become more selective about who gets access to your attention. And as they stay behind, stuck in their unexamined patterns, you are already far ahead in a different psychological landscape. Now, let's talk about composure. Staying calm in the face of disrespect is not weakness, and it is not emotional suppression. It is a form of mature power. Jung's view of strength is not about never feeling hurt. It is about not being ruled by that hurt. So when someone expects you to explode, and instead you stay still and clear, you break their script. They were prepared for your anger, your tears, or your drama. They were not prepared for your calm boundary. Silence changes the power dynamic. When you refuse to react impulsively, you are no longer playing on their terms. You are not denying your feelings. You're holding them, integrating them, and choosing how to respond instead of being pulled into emotional chaos. This is not emotional numbness. It is emotional mastery. One of the strongest forms of boundary Jung would support is this: setting limits without over-explaining yourself. You do not owe a detailed defense of your decision to protect your peace. You don't need to list all the times they hurt you, hoping they will finally get it. You don't have to justify why you're stepping away from what is clearly damaging. You can simply decide, this is enough. You quietly reduce contact, or you end a relationship, or you stop sharing intimate parts of yourself with someone who mishandles them. You don't scream. You don't beg. You don't try to win in the court of their opinion. You just step back. That is not revenge. That is psychological self-care. That is you understanding that your mind, your heart, your nervous system are not designed to live in a constant state of disrespect and emotional alert. Jung's idea of synchronicity reminds us that when we stop living in cycles of reaction and revenge and instead choose inner growth, life itself begins to mirror that choice. You may notice meaningful coincidences. New people enter your life just as you let go of the old. Opportunities appear that align with your true self. Healing conversations show up at the right time. These are not magic tricks. They're the natural consequences of no longer wasting energy on battles that keep you small. Revenge ties you to the person who hurt you. It keeps you orbiting around their actions, trying to teach them a lesson. But walking away, choosing silence, choosing your own path, that breaks the psychological loop. You're no longer defined by what they did. You're no longer rehearsing your pain through them. You move from why did they do this to me to who am I beyond this? Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is disappear with dignity. Not ghosting as a manipulative strategy, but a conscious, honorable withdrawal from a dynamic that is harming you. You don't slam the door. You simply stop standing in the doorway. You step into your life and let the distance speak. This kind of disappearance carries a powerful message. Your presence was a privilege, not a guarantee. You are not available to those who treat you as an option. You are not a background character in someone else's emotional drama. You are not an endless emotional resource for those who cannot offer basic respect in return. Over time, the other person feels the void you left behind. At first, they may deny it. Then they may ridicule it. Then in quiet moments, they begin to feel it. They remember your patience, your support, your warmth, your presence, and they realize those things were not permanent. Meanwhile, you're no longer waiting for them to understand. You have reached a different level, psychological sovereignty. At this level, you don't even need closure from them. You understand that closure is something you can give yourself by deciding that the story is over, even if they never apologize, never explain, never admit what they did. You're no longer trapped in their narrative. You are writing your own. Carl Jung captured this transformation in a simple, powerful sentence. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This is the core of your silent power. You're not the insult, the betrayal, the dismissal, or the disrespect. You're the person who chose to rise instead of react. You're the person who chose growth instead of revenge. You are the person who chose silence, not as surrender, but as a clear statement of self-worth. So the next time someone crosses a line and your instinct is to shout, explain, or beg to be understood, remember this. You have another option. You can breathe. You can step back. You can observe. And you can decide that your energy is too valuable to be spent proving to someone that you deserve basic respect. Your silence can become your shield, your boundary, and your message. As you finish this video, I invite you to turn this idea into a personal declaration. If this message resonated with you, if you are ready to stop over-explaining yourself to people who don't truly listen, write this sentence in the comments as a commitment to yourself. My silence is my strongest statement.